Okay, we'll go ahead and get rolling. Few of the first couple slides are just kind of talking about my background, so you guys get an idea where I come from, what I've done, and we'll go from there. So again, my name is John Watkinson, as you can see on the slide. We're going to talk about workforce management, but before we get into workforce management, this is my time. We get to talk about me just for a little bit. So this is my little quick one PowerPoint slide presentation about John. So I grew up in Iowa City, actually a small farm town outside of Iowa City in Iowa. Love it. Started my career many years ago at MCI. And then from there, moved on to AT&T, which phone company in the Midwest, American Express Travel. Moved to Indiana, which again is a lot like Iowa. I still have a cornfield in my backyard, but now a big city a half hour away, which is super cool. Was a contact center manager at Stericycle. Legacy interactive intelligence since about 06. So from a workforce management and from a pure connect CIC platform, very familiar, pure cloud, and some on pure engage also. So anyway, and now I've landed at Avtex. I truly call it my home. I'm super happy. I'm sure we've all had those careers where we sit at the foot of our bed and in the morning and kind of shake our head and ask ourselves, what are we doing? But I can tell you, absolutely hit the jackpot here. Love what I do. Love the people I work with. It's a really good company. So again, kind of my background, I started as a security guard at MCI. Literally never touched a computer in my life. And again, that was back in the 90s, and I'm gonna just leave it at that. Kind of was in reporting and analytics after that, centralized workforce optimization, 5-state region, kind of brought all the scheduling, all the analytics, all the reporting to a centralized location, and we manage that. Managed regional folks that were responsible for service levels in the large contact centers at American Express Travel. And again, while at Interactive, just anything and everything WFM related, from education, from consulting to product management, just a little bit of everything helping out there, and a contact center manager at Stericycle also. And again, here at Avtex, I believe my title is a senior contact center consultant. So with obviously a strong focus in the WFM arena. Enough about me. We will move on now. We're going to talk about some forecasting best practices first. So when we talk about forecasting best practices, this, I can't stress enough. I could literally talk about this slide for 30 minutes, which I won't, but this is where it all begins. I mean, literally, if this is not accurate, we have a tough time producing schedules in our contact center to have accurate schedules in our contact center. So this is where it all starts. Is my data the right data, right? Am I looking at all the right data? Am I bringing in all the right data when I'm forecasting? And don't forget to look at handle time. So again, big picture, what are we doing around workforce management? We're taking our historic interactions, right? We're taking our historic handle time. We're assigning a goal, 80% of our calls in 20 seconds or less, an average speed of answer of 30 seconds, maybe a combination of the two. And we're producing headcount every 15-minute interval to handle those interactions that are coming in to meet your service goal. So handle time is just as important as volume. A lot of people, a lot of times kind of glance at it, look at it, and move on. So handle time, again, is a big piece. When you have new hires that come out on the floor, that will inflate your handle time. So you just want to make sure that we're recording data and tracking data properly. Relationships with operations, very important. And I know, I say this when I go out into contact centers, and sometimes people just chuckle a little bit, but we really have to have a good partnership with operations to understand what's coming. We will talk about in this presentation being proactive versus reactive, and this is one of those pieces. What are we doing? Are we sending out mailings? Is there a commercial that's going to be aired? What's going to happen that's going to spike our volume? When I was with American Express Travel, we literally forecasted on weather. If a storm was hitting the Northeast, imagine what travel's like. Imagine what's like in the Midwest, but Northeast seems a lot more travel, a lot more airports that are affected. So, you guys probably use all different types of resources when you use your forecasting. Don't just rely on your historic data. Think about what's going to happen out into the future to be able to predict that also. But working with operations, super important to understand what they are going to do that's going to impact your volume that's coming in, new line of business, anything along those lines. I talked a little bit about flag certain days. So again, when we talk about those campaigns or those mailings that are going to go out and they happen, it's going to spike your volume, right? So we need to be able to say, on this day, we had campaign A, okay? On this day, we had campaign B. Some systems will allow you to have to allow you to go back and search for certain anomalies. So system, go back and grab my last 5 campaign A's, because that's what my schedules are going to be like in 2 weeks. My volume is going to be like that in 2 weeks. So I don't want just the last 6 or 8 weeks worth of data. I want to be able to physically go out and get where we had those campaigns and bring those in and forecast on that data, because it's going to be much more accurate to what my schedule is needed to produce in 2 weeks. I'm hoping that makes sense. I'm a big person that looking at nods. We should all turn on our webcams. I'm joking, we're not going to do that. But again, please file in questions if questions come up, and we will get to those at the end. But I want to make sure I answer all your questions also. Or outside of campaigns and mailings, right? There is the first week of each month or each quarter. You may be cyclical, and we always are busy at the first part of the month versus the last part of the month, the first part of the quarter versus the last part of the quarter. So we can literally want to tell the system, go back and grab the last first weeks of every month or every quarter, the last 5 occurrences, bring those in, not just the last 6 weeks worth of data. Okay. And again, as I go through this, I've literally said we could spend a ton of time just on this slide. And at the end of the presentation, I will talk about, how to contact me or how to contact our team. I have no problem getting into a deeper dive of any of these conversations with you guys if you want to down the road also. Quantitative versus qualitative. So again, the computer does a great job. The algorithm that's behind your workforce system is bringing in data. If you're not using Excel, I'm sure there are customers on there that are using Excel. But if you have a workforce system, the computer will bring in your X weeks worth of data. That's great. It's all there. It's your data, right? But you, the human, you may have to go in and touch that data. My system might say, this is my handle time for the last 6 weeks or whatever weeks I brought in, right? This is going to be my handle time for my schedule in 2 weeks. But I have new employees coming out on the floor on Thursday between noon and 5. Well, your history might not have that inflated handle time. You might have to go in to that forecast and say, even though my handle time is 330 seconds, I need to up it to 430 seconds because I'm anticipating longer handle times during that time. So again, where it all begins, why do we do that? Because when the system takes your forecast and runs your schedule, it's looking to see where are your peaks and valleys, where is the best place to place a break or a meal. And if we tell the system that between, let's say, 2 and 3, we are, raising our handle time, it's not going to put as many breaks or meals there because you're too busy, right? So we want to try to have the data be as accurate as we can, and be able to forecast accurately to have a good productive schedule. So anyway, I'm rambling a little bit. I'll jump off that one. Does it look right? I can't stress enough, those that are in charge of forecasting, to look at the data. You'll see it. I mean, you'll see we took 1,500 calls on Monday before 1,500 calls, Monday before we took 900 calls. What happened? Something occurred. Was it a day before a holiday? Was it a day after a holiday? What caused this to happen? And that's where we may flag that day or remove that day. You could have a system issue where data didn't, record accurately or something. I want to not use that data when I run my forecast. So make sure what I call is the eyeball test. Look at it, see if it passes the eyeball test. Holiday forecasting. So around holidays, again, your volume is going to change. The day before, the day after, usually the volume is increased because people are off on the holidays, but yet they're still going to call in. So again, make sure that you're flagging those days. Again, I'm running a forecast and I'm running a forecast for Labor Day, but I want to grab the last 6 day after holidays. I want the day after the 4th, I want the day after Memorial Day, I want the day after whatever, going back 6 occurrences, bring that in. Or last year's data. I want to bring in the day after Labor Day last year, bring it in. That's what I want to use for my forecasting because that's more aligned with the volume that we're going to see, okay? And again, day or after before holiday, look for low volumes. And we talked a little bit about that AHT. Do I need to increase it or decrease it based on different anomalies that are happening there? We'll move along. Intraday management. So we don't want to be reactive. We want to be proactive, right? It's so important. And I can tell you 80% of the contact centers that I have been in are very reactive because on the slide before, communication with operations is key, right? We need to be able to plan, and we'll talk about that, but we need to be able to be in the know. We need to know what's happening. So what happens if you're looking at an intraday screen, and again, an intraday is what we'll post every 30 minutes, possibly every 15 minutes, what was projected and what actually happened. So imagine at 8 a.m. this morning, I was supposed to get 82 calls, but I got 102 calls. The next interval, I was supposed to get 96 calls, but I got 125 calls. Something's happening. Possibly a commercial was aired. Possibly a mailer went out. Something that spiked volume that's coming into the contact center. I would want to go to the frontline agents, seek to understand what kind of calls are we getting, what's going on, and I can find that out. So we need to have action plans in place. Things like what happens if my service level is too high? What happens if my service level is too low? So for example, in this case, service level is going to increase, or it's going to decrease, I apologize, because the call volume is very high. So our service level is going to drop, it's going to tank, it's going to start getting bad. So I might need to look out into the day and see if I have meetings, if I have trainings scheduled, if I have the ability for overtime. But I need to be able to possibly cancel and reschedule meetings to make sure I have all hands on deck, right? Because call volume is higher than expected. And in the reverse of that, if call volume is really low, supposed to get 80 calls, only got 60. Next interval, supposed to get 96, only got 64 calls. Volume's low, something's happening. So what I like to have is what we call, again, my words, not yours, but a tickle file. Like each supervisor, I would like to have a plan ready to where if workforce picked up the phone and called and said, listen, volume's low, we need to pull people off the phone, because I don't want to run 100% service level, because that's losing money in my contact center also. So I'm going to say we need to pull people off the phone. Who can have some one-on-ones? And then we would get those and get those people off the phone as needed. Possibly may need to, if we can and afford to, send people home. Maybe there's voluntary time off. We have lots of options, but with intraday management, I'm able to be much more proactive than reactive, because I can see how my day is trending. We have the ability to reforecast, and I'll get into that a little bit at the bottom, but that's a big piece of how I can project what's going to happen the rest of the day. Daily huddles. I can't stress this one enough. This one is super huge. If your last start time, your main group people coming in, let's say is 10 a.m. You might have a few people start 11 or 1, but for the most part, your employees have started by 10 o'clock. I want to have a huddle with my supervisors, and I want to talk about the day. So based on today, so far at 10 o'clock, we've had X number of call-ins, we have this going on, we have this meeting, this training, this is happening. Here are our available times the rest of the day if we want to pull people off the phone. So between 2 and 3, horrible time. We're understaffed by 3 bodies, but between 3 and 4:30, we're good. We're up 4 FTE. So we can pull maybe 3-ish bodies off the phone to have meetings or trainings. So in the daily huddle, we can project, and people can say, I'll take from 3 to 3:30, and Tommy might take from 3:30 to 4, and Aaron might take 4 to 4:30 to pull a few people off the phone if needed, because we have our supervisors right in front of us. I know I'm going to talk about this a little bit later, but it kind of ties into here too. What do we want to allow to pull people off the phone? So can I take Sally and Sam off the phone ties into this a little bit. That's a culture change. The can is the key word in that sentence. Can I take them off the phone versus I did or I am taking them off the phone? Can I take them off the phone? If you can change that, if you can have that bullet point inserted into your contact center day-to-day business, you have moved a huge milestone. Like that is one of the biggest hurdles in contact centers to ensure that everybody's on the same page. Because if I am looking at an intraday screen, I'm a supervisor, and I can see the data, I can see what's happening, and I can see that between 3 and 4:30, we're overstaffed by 3 FTE. Well, Aaron's going to pull 3 people off, Tommy's going to pull 3 people off, and John's going to pull 3 people off. But what if they all do it at the same time? We have 9 people off the phone just like that. Can I take them off the phone? Well, Aaron's going to do this time. Tommy, you can have that time because John's doing this time. It's more coordination, okay? I think I've beaten that one a little bit, but can I take them off the phone? Huge, huge hurdle. If you can overcome that, you've accomplished a ton. Okay, the power of one. They only give me 30 minutes for this, so I'm kind of rambling a little bit and trying to get through some cool stuff. The power of one. So if you haven't seen this, very powerful, very effective. Imagine there's 7 of us standing together in a room, and we all have a tennis ball in our hand, and we're tossing the tennis balls back to each other, okay? Well, those are calls. Those tennis balls are calls. And all of a sudden, someone comes in and pulls Aaron out of the circle. Aaron, you need to come to this meeting. Those 7 balls still need to be passed around with the 6 people. Then someone comes in and takes Tommy off the phone. Again, there's still all those calls happening, but they're going to start dropping, right? Calls are going to start dropping. They're going to start going on hold. That's the power of one. Literally 1 or 2 people can make or break a service level at an interval. Can I take the person off the phone? Very, very important. Power One is really cool to do with some of the agents or representatives sometimes because they understand that. I also encourage agents to shadow WFM team to see what it's like. You know, what happens when you don't come back from break on time or come back from meal on time? This is the impact, right? Their voice, very powerful. Agent to agent, peer-to-peer voice is great in the contact center, and we'll get into that a little bit also. Circling back to reforecasting, I mentioned that just a little bit ago. We have the ability, or you should have the ability, to use this and do it often. It's very important. So today, my service level is 80% of my calls in 20 seconds or less, but call volume's high. I've had a few call-ins. I know I'm not going to hit my 80, but I absolutely have to hit a 70 or I pay a penalty. We should be able to go in, reforecast, and figure out what your FTE or headcount need is every interval the rest of the day to hit a 70. If you're not utilizing that feature, again, pick up the phone, call me, email me, but we should talk through that because that will really help you plan out your day, being proactive versus reactive, okay? You're a little reactive, but you're also ahead of the game a little bit by a few hours to ensure you can try to get the coverage in that you need. All right. At this point, I would ask questions, but I can't get any questions, so I'm gonna move along. Adherence management. This one is near and dear to my heart, okay? Who can excuse adherence events? Who has that ability? Do supervisors excuse adherence events? Is a centralized workforce person excusing those adherence events? I would never want to assume, but I have been in contact centers where if supervisors have the ability to control or excuse adherence events, there could be a situation where someone who reports to John could say, hey, I was running a little late and John says you're tardy. You're out of adherence. There's nothing I can do about it. But that person might also report to Erin, and Erin, she's super nice, right? Erin's gonna be, oh, you had a system problem. I used air quotes. You couldn't see me, but I literally used air quotes right there. So she could excuse that event, right? Because Erin could have an adherence target tied to her performance goals also. Not to say that could happen, but it could, right? The option is there. So we want to be careful of who can excuse adherence events. The big question of Big Brother, right? Big Brother's watching. That's not the case. You know, adherence is so important. It's part of the biggest ROI in the contact center. And I guess I should take a step back. I want to talk a little bit about adherence and define it for people. So adherence is, I'm scheduled to be on the phone, but I'm off the phone. I was supposed to be on the phone at 10 o'clock, but I was off the phone running to the restroom. I was stuck on a call. And I was supposed to be on break. So again, 2 ways to be out of adherence: scheduled to be on the phone and I'm off the phone, or I'm scheduled to be off the phone and I'm on the phone. That's it. It's as simple as that. So how closely are we following our breaks and meals? So again, Big Brother's watching. What do you mean you're telling me I have to go to lunch now? What do you mean you're telling me I have to go to break now? Again, shadow the WFM team, understand the importance and see how the calls are coming in and why it's important we take breaks and meals when we are scheduled to do so. Empower your agents. If my meal is at noon and it's 11:56, 11:57, log off, go now. I would much rather have you be 4 minutes out of adherence than be stuck on a call and be 15 or 20 minutes out of adherence or 10 minutes out of adherence. So again, empower your agents. That I've seen that be very productive in contact centers. We talked about that agent-to-agent accountability. You know, Tommy, why are you late coming back for lunch again? I can't really go till you get back. Some people will display real-time adherence and I say a Jumbotron, I joke, but like a TV monitor out on the contact center floor so people can see. Some contact centers can do that, some can't, but it does add tremendous value to help you so you're not the Big Brother saying, why are you always late for meal? Why are you always late for break? Agent-to-agent accountability is pretty powerful. What do we excuse and do we excuse? So again, with adherence, you know, I've gone back and forth on this. I don't have the right answer. It's really what fits for your contact center. I'm a believer that an agent should never be penalized. So if I'm an agent and I'm following my schedule, my supervisor pulls me off the phone for an hour for a meeting, that should absolutely be excused. But I have talked to professionals in this industry and they said, don't touch it. Don't even excuse it. It's what actually happened in the contact center. All you're doing is overwriting the schedule. You're just changing the schedule. And in my thing is, well, it happened, right? That is what happened. Well, you're not planning for it. You didn't plan for that. Can I take this person off the phone? This is the best time to do it. So I see both sides to that. But again, I will, speak from the mountaintops that I don't want to penalize the agent for something that they didn't have control over. If John is late coming to work, John owns that. If John was pulled off the phone, John didn't have control over that. I guess John could refuse, but probably not a good idea. Should agents see their adherence scores? So I laugh about this one, but it's kind of funny. But again, agents are smart. It's a math. They will know. I get so many, and my percentage goal is this. I get 32 minutes a day. So if I know today is the 25th and my adherence is X, I have X minutes that I could actually be away from my desk and still meet my goal. So there's pros and cons behind that. I like showing maybe mid-month and then end month, but not daily. I don't think that's very productive because they can figure things out. Incentive, should you put an incentive behind it? Should there be schedule bidding tied to adherence? Sure. 100% is good, right? For adherence, nope, because usually people are sitting, possibly in after call work, waiting for their break to happen, and then at noon, boom, hitting, changing, going to break. So 100% is probably not the right behavior we're driving either. Adherence versus conformance. Again, I talked about adherence being your goal is X, did I take my lunch and my break on time? Conformance is you paid me to be available on the phone or an after call work for 7.5 hours. Was I? Might not have taken my meal and break at the right time, but I truly had no, here come my air quotes again, lost time, right? There's no lost time. So again, someone's adherence could be low. It could be 81, 82%, and you'd be like, what the heck? But their conformance is 99. I might not be so upset with that person. They might have truly done the right behaviors and been stuck on calls. Should attendance count towards adherence? Probably not, because again, if you have team goals, you're kind of dinging them on the attendance side through a points policy or an attendance policy. You might not want to, hit them again on the adherence side because that could affect your entire contact center. But that's you, and just talking about the differences and why you should or shouldn't, you will understand how your business runs better than I. Power of one again, kind of with the tennis balls. I'm not going to say it again, but you get the idea how important one person can be. Just a couple quick slides here on adherence management. I know I'm getting close on time. I didn't think I would be, but adherence management, what I like to have is a service level agreement. So again, agree what is excused and what's not. What are we going to excuse? Again, if we pulled the agent off, it's not their fault. We're going to excuse it. If John's late, we're not excusing it. Come up with that. Adherence reports say are delivered to team supervisors by 9. Edits or corrections returned by 2. Corrections are made and sent back out. So there should be a process, right? I'll have all reports to you by this time, you have corrections back to me back by this time, and reports should be finalized. And have a time period set, 3 days, 3 weeks, 3 months, whatever it is, but I'm not gonna go back after that and keep readjusting adherence, okay? You were given the report, you made your corrections, and now we're moving forward. How do I set an adherence goal? If you haven't started adherence, create a baseline. Find out what you're running today, measure adherence without any exceptions, and see what your baseline is. You're not going to go from 80 to 93 overnight. There is a process to get there, and it's baby steps, but you will get there. I encourage you not to adjust breaks and lunches for long calls. I was stuck on a call. I'm going to adjust that. Don't do that. Change your goal if you have to, okay? And the Jurassic Park rule, they will find a way. Agents are the smartest people in the contact center. They will find a way, right? There's a way around it. Again, if they hide an after call work prior to a meal or break, they may do that. What is your handle time? If your handle time runs super high, like 12 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, adherence isn't going to be a good measurement for you because nobody's going to hit their breaks and meals. But we talked about that conformance. Scheduled to be on the phone, available, and after call work. Was I? Is there any lost time? That might be a better goal for you. Getting close, but it's only 30 minutes. I like the slide title. Contact center has 50 agents, okay? Each agent averages 30 minutes of lost productivity. So quickly here, I was 5 minutes late for my break, so I stayed 5 minutes after, so I lost 10 minutes. I stayed 5 minutes on the phone. I'm going to take my full 15 minutes, come back 5 minutes late. I'm 10 minutes out of adherence. Same thing happens for a meal. Same thing happens for my afternoon break. 10 minutes each event, 30 minutes of lost productivity right there. Sorry, here. That equates to about 3.3 FTE. If an agent is average pay of $15 an hour, you lose about $370 a day and just under 100,000 annually. And that's only based on 260 working days. That's Monday through Friday. So again, if you work Saturdays or you're 24/7, that number changes drastically. And again, some things we do behind the scenes here, we do some ROI stuff. And I'll kind of jump to this next slide. What we offer from our side, WFM Consulting, product selection. You know, I and my team were pretty well versed across all platforms. We have worked with many customers on product selection. What works best? Here's our needs, here's our wants. Let's find the best product for the least amount of money and help you get there. Best practices. Again, we're spending 30 minutes and I blew through 3 topics. Like literally, we can spend a lot of time on these things. We also offer data analytics, reporting, business intelligence, speech analytics, contact center best practices. Again, outside of WFM, just best practices. Technology and process roadmaps help you get there, and improvement and optimization. So if you have questions, reach out to your CAM or my leader, Bob Trainer. He kind of leads our group. That's his information. And then the next slide is just my contact information. So that's it. That's what I got for you. And I got 1 minute to spare. So I don't know if there's any questions in the question pod or not. I don't see any.
Yeah, John, we have a couple questions.
Okay.
So I know some people might have to jump, but let's see. So one of the questions is, what is the difference between the forecast and long-term forecast? When would I want to run a long-term forecast?
Sure. My rule, and again, it's my rule of short-term forecasting is people that run schedules for next week out to maybe 2 months, maybe 3 months, right? Long-term forecast is more capacity planning. You know, I want to know what my forecast need is next Q1 and Q2. You know, that's more long-term capacity planning. When you run a short-term, think about this. It's the end of July. So let's say I'm running a forecast for August 1, sounds great. August 10, sounds great. But if I'm running a forecast from mid-September, I'm really only using the data from today and back 6 weeks. So I'm not able to capture that data between now and September 10, right? So you're basing it on the forecast from here that's right now and historic. So you want to be careful how far out you run those short-term forecasts. Hope that answered your question.
I see just one more question. So how often should you approve your adherence expectations?
So how often should you approve your adherence exceptions? So again, I kind of put that, what I call service level agreement. I'd like to stay on them daily just because they add up fast. They add up so quickly. For sure by weekend, you know, by Friday, have that week's done. But I'm a big fan of, again, sending a report out in the morning, have supervisors make corrections, get them back to you that day, or maybe just a little bit later the next morning. And then the next day, have a new report for yesterday, all finalized. So I would say within a day or 2 at the most, if you can.
Awesome. Well, with that, we'll wrap things up.
Okay.
So thanks everyone for joining us today, and keep an eye on. This is just one of the many webinars we have in this Engage webinar series. So I encourage you all to go check out the events page on aptex.com and see what topics we're gonna be tackling next, and reach out to John and his team if you guys have any additional questions about workforce management and the different offerings that we can help you with.
Thanks, everyone.